In the heart of a city driven by the glimmer of success and the pressures of power, an unexpected encounter reopens old wounds and raises questions that were never answered. Amidst the weight of past choices and the discovery of a new life in the making, a man is forced to face what he let slip away in the name of ambition. What truly has value? The accolades that the world applauds, or the memories that persist in returning when silence falls? Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The impeccably aligned charcoal grey suit contrasted with the simple interior of the small neighbourhood restaurant. Nathan Reed adjusted his burgundy tie as his eyes took in the cosy surroundings. The vintage-style pendant lights cast a yellowish glow over the worn wooden tables. The aroma of garlic and fresh herbs filled the air. Normally, he would dine in renowned establishments, where celebrity chefs prepared dishes worthy of photographs in culinary magazines. But tonight was different. After 6 hours of exhausting meetings with foreign investors, all Nathan wanted was a discreet place, without sycophants. A place where he could just be an ordinary man enjoying a simple meal. How long had it been since he experienced this feeling of normalcy? Perhaps since he had been appointed CEO of Horizon Enterprises 20 months ago. It was then that his gaze caught a familiar movement, a gesture, a silhouette that his heart recognized before his brain even processed it. Grace. She moved between the tables with the same grace he remembered, but now she wore a simple waitress uniform. Her brown hair was tied up in a messy bun, with a few loose strands framing her face. And then when she turned, Nathan felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. Grace was pregnant, visibly pregnant. Time seemed to slow down. Nathan tasted the bitter irony. In 7 months, he had broken all the company's profit records while Grace was nurturing a life. Which of them was truly building something meaningful? Memories flooded his mind. The small apartment they shared when he was still a junior analyst with big dreams. The nights when Grace would massage his tense shoulders while he studied financial reports. The look of genuine admiration she gave him when he talked about his plans for the future. "Sir, would you like a table?" The hostess's voice brought Nathan back to reality. His words failed him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Grace entering the kitchen, unaware of his presence. "I've changed my mind, thank you." The street was cold when he left the restaurant. Nathan loosened the tie that now seemed to be suffocating him. His driver was patiently waiting in the black BMW parked outside. "Home, sir?" Nathan nodded silently, unable to articulate words. The image of Grace and her rounded belly burned in his mind like a hot iron. During the ride, he stared at the illuminated city without really seeing it. The last conversation they had echoed in his ears. "You don't need me anymore, Nathan, and I no longer recognize the man I married." At the time, her words seemed like a dramatic exaggeration, maybe even ingratitude. After all, his success meant a better life for both of them. But now, as the city passed by in a blur through the car window, Nathan wondered if it was he who had been ungrateful. The penthouse apartment in the financial district of the city seemed larger and emptier than ever. Nathan poured himself some expensive whiskey, a gift from an important shareholder, and walked over to the glass wall that offered a panoramic view of the city. Down below, millions of lights twinkled like earthly stars, each one representing a life, a story. What was Grace's story now? Who was the father of that child? How many months pregnant? The questions tormented him more than any corporate problem ever could. On the coffee table, the latest edition of Business Leaders displayed him on the cover under the title, "The Prodigy, at 30, How Nathan Reed Transformed Horizon Enterprises." Next to it, a pile of invitations to gala events, charity dinners, and exclusive parties. All the rituals of the business elite that now composed his routine. Nathan opened the desk drawer and found an already yellowed envelope. Inside, the copy of the divorce papers signed by both. It was a quick and amicable process, if such a word could be applied to the end of 8 years together. He had offered a generous financial settlement, which Grace had refused with dignity. "I don't want your money, Nathan. That was never why I stayed by your side." That night, he didn't sleep. The hours dragged on as Nathan revisited every moment with Grace, from the first meeting in the college library to the last argument where harsh words were spoken, words he wished he could take back now. When the sun rose, Nathan had already made a decision. He needed to see her again. For 3 consecutive nights, Nathan returned to the restaurant, always sitting at a discreet table in the back, watching Grace work. She seemed exhausted, but there was a serenity in her face that contrasted with the tense expression he saw in the mirror every morning. On the 4th night, Grace noticed him. Recognition lit up her eyes for a second, before a shadow of pain darkened them again. She approached with measured steps, the order pad in her hand like a shield. "Good evening, sir. What would you like to order?" The formality in her voice was a wall. "Grace." Nathan tried to find the right words, but they all seemed inadequate. "Can we talk? When your shift is over?" She hesitated, her hand instinctively resting on her prominent belly. "Please," he added almost in a whisper. "I finish at 10, she finally replied, before moving away to attend to other tables. Nathan waited patiently, watching the restaurant gradually empty out. At 10:15 p.m, Grace emerged from the back, now without the apron, wearing a simple coat over her uniform. "There's a cafe open on the corner," she suggested, avoiding his gaze. The cafe was modest, with formica tables and fluorescent lights that did not forgive dark circles or worry lines, so different from the refined environments Nathan frequented now. Still, there was something comforting in the simplicity of the place. "Are you okay?" was all he could initially ask. "I'm surviving," Grace replied, a raw honesty in her voice. "And you? Judging by the magazines, you're on top of the world." "Appearances can be deceiving," he admitted, running a hand through his perfectly trimmed hair. "Grace, about the baby." "Yes, I'm 8 months pregnant," she answered the unasked question. "And yes, Nathan, it's your child." The words hit Nathan like a punch in the stomach. His child. A life created by them even after the separation. "Why didn't you tell me?" Grace took a sip of the chamomile tea she had ordered before responding. "When I found out, you were in all the newspapers because of that big company deal. Parties, interviews. It seemed like you finally had everything you always wanted." A loaded pause. "And I was no longer a part of it." Nathan felt the weight of each word. The memories of the last weeks of their marriage came back vividly, the missed calls, the cancelled dinners, the superficial conversations. How easy it had been to be carried away by the tide of success, drifting away from the safe shore that Grace had always represented. "I made a terrible mistake," he finally admitted. "I thought I was protecting us by separating, that you deserved someone who could be present, someone who wasn't constantly surrounded by temptations." "Temptations," Grace repeated the word as if testing its flavour. "Is that how you justify pushing me away, to protect me from potential betrayals?" "I never cheated on you, Grace," Nathan asserted vehemently, not physically but emotionally. "I withdrew. I let success, money, constant validation seduce me. It's a form of infidelity too, isn't it?" The silence that followed was laden with unspoken truths. "I have been working here for 4 months, Grace finally spoke. "Before that I was at the accounting office, but the morning sickness made it impossible to continue. Margaret, the owner of the restaurant, is an old friend of my mother's. She offered me this job with flexible hours." Nathan observed Grace's hands, once manicured, now with short nails and skin dried from work. Hands that had held his in moments of doubt, that had applauded every small victory throughout his career. "Why are you telling me this now?" Grace asked, a rare vulnerability in her voice. "Because—" Nathan took a deep breath. "Because when I saw you in that restaurant, pregnant, serving tables. Everything I have built over the past few months seemed empty, meaningless. He extended his hand over the table, not touching hers, just offering. I would like to be a part of our child's life. And, if you allow, try to fix what I broke between us. Grace didn't take his hand. It's not that simple, Nathan. You can't just show up after months and expect everything to go back to the way it was. I still remember your words during the divorce, that I no longer fit into your new reality, that it was better if we didn't see each other anymore. Words have power, Nathan. They hurt. The cafe was almost empty now. Soft music filled the silence between them. I'm not asking you to forget, Nathan finally said. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can change, that I am already changing. When they said goodbye that night, nothing was resolved, but a small bridge had been built over the chasm that separated them. In the following weeks, Nathan began a silent transformation. He reorganized his corporate schedule to make room for what truly mattered. He started attending the final prenatal appointments with Grace, always respecting her space, only offering support. During one of these appointments, when they listened to the baby's heartbeat together, Nathan felt tears in his eyes, not of sadness, but of a profound joy that no professional achievement had ever provided him. I have no more doubts it's a boy, announced the doctor, smiling as she pointed to the ultrasound screen. At that moment, Grace allowed her fingers to briefly intertwine with Nathan's, a small gesture that meant everything. The most dramatic transformation came 3 months later. After long reflection and several sleepless nights, Nathan made a decision that shocked the corporate world. He resigned as CEO of Horizon Enterprises. Mr. Reed cited personal reasons for his surprising departure, financial news reports announced. Rumors quickly spread. Health issues, impending scandals, better offers from competitors. The truth was much simpler. Nathan had finally realized that no title or bank account could replace what truly mattered. He accepted a less demanding position at a mid-sized company with regular hours and without the constant pressure of the limelight. On the day his son was born, Alexander, as they decided to name him in honor of his paternal grandfather, Nathan was present. Not as the millionaire CEO he had been, but simply as a man determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. The first months of parenthood were a revelation. Sleepless nights, diapers, bottles, all so far removed from meeting rooms and business dinners. Nathan learned to rock Alexander to sleep, to recognize his different types of cries, to marvel at each little milestone, the first smile, the first roll, the first word. Grace observed this transformation with initial caution, then with growing admiration. The man changing diapers at 3 a.m, humming out-of-tune lullabies, seemed much more like the Nathan she had fallen in love with than the cold and distant executive who had signed the divorce papers. They established a co-parenting routine that worked surprisingly well. Nathan visited daily, helping with Alexander and often bringing dinner so Grace could rest. On weekends they went for walks in the park together, looking like an ordinary family to strangers, which in a way they were becoming again. 2 years passed. Alexander grew up, becoming a vibrant and curious boy, with Grace's eyes and Nathan's smile. Grace returned to work as a full-time accountant, while Nathan found genuine satisfaction in his new, less prestigious, but infinitely more rewarding career. On a particularly beautiful autumn Sunday, Nathan was playing with Alexander in the backyard of the small house that Grace had bought with her savings. The boy was chasing after a colourful ball, his laughter echoing like the sweetest melody. Grace watched from the porch, a mug of tea in her hands. There was something different about her gaze, a softness that Nathan hadn't seen in a long time. When Alexander went inside to get water, she approached, sitting next to Nathan on the porch step. "Do you remember our first apartment?" asked Grace, looking at the sky where white clouds sailed lazily. "How could I forget?" Nathan smiled. "That heater that only worked when we hit it. The neighbour from 3B who sang opera in the shower at 6 a.m. And the horrible sofa we bought at the sale. Hey, I loved that sofa," protested Nathan, laughing. It was so small that we had to squeeze together to watch TV. Maybe that was the charm, Nathan responded softly. A comfortable silence settled between them. Not the silence filled with unspoken resentments from the past, but a new kind of silence, full of possibilities. You know what I realized? Grace finally broke the silence. You've stopped looking at the clock. Nathan frowned, puzzled. Before, even when we were together, you were always checking the clock, as if you were counting the minutes until you could get back to work. Now, when you're with Alex, or with me, you're truly present. The words touched Nathan deeply. I learned the hard way that time is the only truly non-renewable resource. I don't want to waste another second on things that don't matter. Grace reached out, her fingers lightly touching Nathan's. It took time, but I think I finally started to see the man I fell in love with again. In that simple gesture, fingers intertwined as they watched their son play, was the beginning of rebuilding. They wouldn't return to who they were before. Both had changed, grown, learned. But perhaps they could build something new, stronger, rooted not in illusions of grandeur, but in the simplicity of everyday love. Can we have dinner together tonight? Just the three of us? Nathan asked, his heart racing like in college days when he mustered up the courage to ask Grace out. She smiled, that smile that once lit up every day of his life. I think I'd like that. And so, in an ordinary backyard, on an ordinary Sunday, the extraordinary happened. Two people who had lost their way found their way back to each other, not through grand gestures or grand promises, but through the constancy of small shared moments and the courage to start anew. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.